I'm Celine from Blue Cala Patterns. Welcome to the video tutorial for the Tumbleweed Toiletry Tote. This is a fairly large sized bag for a toiletry tote, so it's perfect for traveling. You can use it for cosmetics, toiletries. If you don't have any need for that type of bag, you could also use it for a sewing supply bag. I do have a tester who wrote a nice blog post describing how to customize it to make it a sewing supply bag. And I have another tester who actually made one as a knitting project bag. So there's a lot of possibilities with this style of bag. It has the following dimensions. So it's 12 3/4 inches wide, 8 3/4 inches high, and the depth is 6 3/8 of an inch deep. It has two top carry handles, and it has an upper compartment and a lower train case compartment. For the upper compartment, which I've called the zipper compartment, you'll see that it opens nice and wide, and you can have a great view of the contents of this compartment thanks to the structure provided by the metal frame. For the train case compartment, there's also a lot of storage space in the bottom portion of the train case. And in the top here, I'll open it all the way, there is a zipper pocket, and I use mesh fabric instead of regular fabric, so you can clearly see the contents of the zipper pocket as soon as you open the train case. And it has a zippered closure. The next thing you'll want to do is read through the entire pattern. You don't have to print out the entire pattern, but I would recommend that you print out the cutting chart on page 3 and the two pattern pieces, which are the last 2 pages of the pattern. The first pattern piece is this one, the zipper compartment, and you'll notice that the top edge is slightly wider than the bottom edge, and I did include an arrow indicating which way to place your fabric if you're using a directional print. The second pattern piece page looks like this, and you're going to actually follow the instructions that are on the bottom of the pattern piece here and print out 4 copies of this page. Then you'll take 2 copies and you'll cut out these 2 pieces. So the first one, you're cutting along the exterior solid line and then the dotted line here. The second piece, you're going to cut along the inside dashed line and then the dotted line again. Then you'll take the 2 remaining copies that you printed, and you'll place this piece with the dotted lines lined up, and you want to make sure that the exterior lines, the exterior solid lines, are lined up. You'll tape them together and then finish cutting out. For this piece, you're doing the same thing. You're lining up the dotted lines, and then you're making sure that the dashed lines are aligned. And then you'll tape the pieces and finish cutting them out. The rest of the pieces, there are quite a few other pieces, you're going to be using the cutting chart and going through the list. And there are measurements provided for each piece, as well as what material you need to cut them out of and how many you're going to need. And all of those pieces, I recommend cutting using a ruler. If you have one of these clear rulers, even better, because you can do a little fussy cutting because they are see-through, and a rotary cutter. The reason why I don't have these as pattern pieces is because I find it very inaccurate to cut long, especially the longer rectangular pieces, using paper pattern pieces. They can move around too easily, and then it leads to errors. And especially with the train case pieces, I need some precision in the seam allowance and in the dimensions of the pieces. So a rotary cutter and a ruler is really the best way to get accurate measurements. We're now going to go over the supplies and the notions that you're going to need for this pattern. If you're not a very experienced sewist and you're relatively new to bag making, this is an advanced pattern, so you'll want to stick to the types of materials that I've suggested in the pattern. My entire exterior is made out of quilt weight cotton, except for two things: the bottom of the bag, so the bottom exterior, and the two handles. For these, I've used a non-fraying material. I've used cork, a natural cork, and if you would like, you can also use a non-fraying vinyl. The best way to check to see if it's going to fray or not is the type of backing that it has. So if it's a knit backing or if it's a felt backing, it should be fine. But if it has some type of woven backing, there might be a little bit of fraying. If you're not sure, you can just cut a piece and rub along the edges, and if you see some threads coming off, then you know that's going to end up fraying. For the natural cork, I do find occasionally there'll be a thread that comes off. So what I actually do is I apply a little bit of fray check to the edges, and the only area where you're going to have some raw edges is right here at the end of your handles. So if you're worried, it's better to be safe and use a little bit of fray check on those edges to make sure there's no fraying. Now we'll go through the notions that you're going to need. The bag itself, I'll talk a little bit about the type of interfacing. So for all of my exterior and interior pieces, I first applied a fusible woven interfacing. There's many brands out there, and I don't like to be specific with a brand because it will vary a lot based on where you live. Some materials are more difficult to get than others, and so I try to leave that a little bit more vague because I want you to use whatever you find in your area and whatever is most cost effective for you. You're also going to need a little bit of foam interfacing. Again, there's a few brands. There's Bosel, there's by Annie Soft and Stable, and there's Pellon Flex Foam. Use whatever you can find. Either three will work just great. And then the last part, the top part here, it's using fusible fleece, which I've added on top of the woven interfacing to the exterior pieces. There's also a lot of brands of fusible fleece. The one that I use is the Pellon Thermolam Plus. That is my favorite. It's a little bit more dense, but still thin, and there's very little bubbling when I apply it. And then the last type of interfacing you'll need, which is really just found here in the bottom of the bag, inside the layers here, is a firm sew-in interfacing. Again, so many brands out there. Use whatever's available to you. I'm using Pellon, it's not Pellon Peltex, sorry. And I don't ever use a fusible version of either my firm sew-in interfacing or my foam interfacing, because the foam, especially if it's fusible, I find it wrinkles after you turn your bag. In terms of the notions that you're going to need, you're going to need one set of wireframes. So this is what they look like, and they are 10 inches wide by 3.5 inches high, and there's a 90-degree angle here at the corners. If your frames are a little bit shorter, that should be okay, it'll still work, but it's important that you get 10-inch frames in the length. You're going to need some metal zipper ends, and I'm going to show you what those look like on the bag. So this is a metal zipper end here, and it's like a little cap, and it has a screw here. And when you receive them, I buy a lot at a time. So they come in a little bag like this, and there's also a little bag inside that has the screws. Make sure you do not lose these. There are 3 zippers on this bag. There is the zipper compartment zipper, the train case zipper, and the train case zipper pocket zipper. I'll go through the sizes you're going to need for each one. So the train case zipper is either a 30-inch pre-made double pull zipper, 76.2 centimeters if you prefer metric. You can also use zipper tape like I have. This is the zipper tape that I sell in my shop. You can use, you only need 29 inches. So you don't need to cut 30 inches like a pre-made zipper. You just need 29 inches of zipper tape. For the train case zipper pocket, so this is the zipper found inside. You can either use a 12-inch pre-made zipper or 12 inches of zipper tape. It can be a handbag size zipper like this one, or it can be a dress zipper. Either one will work. If you're working in the metric system, you're going to want a 30.5 centimeter zipper. And then the last zipper you're going to need is the zipper compartment zipper. So that's the one for the compartment at the top here. You're going to need either a 22-inch pre-made zipper or 22 inches of zipper tape. If you're working in the metric system, that's 55.9 centimeters. One thing that I forgot to mention is that you're going to need some mesh. The mesh is used inside for this train case zipper pocket. I'm using Bianni's mesh. I like it because it comes in a variety of colors to match your fabric. You're also going to need, there's not a lot in terms of hardware, obviously, as you saw. The only other things that I would recommend that you have, aside from the usual scissors and thread, is some double-sided tape and some needles for hand sewing and a small screwdriver so that you can fasten the screws here on your zipper ends. We're now going to go through the cutting chart one item at a time. And what I'll do to make it a little bit more clear for you exactly what piece you're cutting is I'll show you on the bag itself what I have named all of the different parts. So the first one is the zipper compartment. So you're using this piece to cut the zipper compartment pieces, and the zipper compartment is essentially the pouch that you find at the top of the train case, over top of the train case. So this is also a zipper compartment piece. This is a zipper compartment piece. And this piece here for the bottom of this pouch is actually a train case bottom piece. With your zipper compartment, I'm going to try to make this as clear as possible, but of course you can always ask questions if I made something more confusing. This is my exterior fabric. Now please note that I did put an arrow. If you're using a directional print like I am, I want my turtle facing up. Make sure that your print is following the direction of the arrow when you're cutting. Also, you'll note that the top edge is slightly wider than the bottom edge. So these are my two zipper compartment exterior pieces and my two zipper compartment lining pieces. You'll also need to cut a piece of fusible woven interfacing for all four pieces. So these are my four pieces and they're cut on the fold here. So they're actually a lot bigger than they appear. So I'll be fusing those to the wrong side of these four pieces first. Then I have two pieces in fusible fleece. These will be fused to the wrong side of the exterior pieces only. So there are only two pieces and they will be on the wrong side of these two pieces after I've fused the woven interfacing. Let's set this aside. Next is the train case bottom. What I've done so that it'll be a little bit clearer for you is I matched the train case bottom piece that I'm going to use, the lining piece rather, that I'm going to use for the inside of my zipper compartment. I've actually cut one to match my zipper compartment pieces so that I can keep track of it a little bit easy. Then I'm going to have 2 lining pieces that I'm going to use inside of my train case. So I'm going to show you that inside of the bag. And that's the piece that I find you're going to find behind the zipper pocket here, and this piece right here. Okay, so 2 pieces for the train case. And then the final piece is the exterior piece. This is my cork, and that's this piece that you see right here. There's a lot of interfacing to cut for the train case bottom pieces. First, the 3 lining pieces will each have a piece of fusible woven interfacing fused to the wrong side. Then 2 of the pieces, this one that will be at the bottom of the zipper compartment, and this piece, which will be the bottom here of the zipper pocket. These 2 pieces will also have fusible fleece fused to the wrong side. Now these pieces were not cut from the train case bottom piece. They were cut from the train case bottom interfacing piece. You'll see that the seam allowance has already been cut out from these pieces. So once you have your fusible woven interfacing on these 2 pieces, you're then going to fuse these 2 pieces of fusible fleece. This other piece, which is this bottom piece, will only have the fusible woven interfacing. For the exterior piece, however, I have 1 piece of my firm sew-in interfacing that I used this piece to cut out, and then another regular sized piece that I used to cut a piece of foam interfacing. So we're going to be, I'm going to be showing you how to add this interfacing to the exterior piece in a little bit. The next thing is the train case back panel. I'll show you that on the bag. So it's this back panel right here. This is the train case back panel. It is cut to measurements, and the measurements are provided in the cutting chart. You're going to need the following pieces. You're going to, and I do have some, here they are. So I have my exterior piece, and I have my lining piece. So this is going to be the inside of my train case, and this will be the exterior. And I cut a piece of matching fusible woven interfacing for both of them. Then you're going to need a piece of foam interfacing. And the other piece you're going to need is actually called the back panel firm interfacing, and it has different measurements than the back panel. It's slightly smaller. I've already cut out the seam allowance. And I'm going to show you how we're going to interface. This will be applied to the exterior back panel. I'll show you how we're going to do that in a little bit. The next pieces are the train case gusset pieces. So on the bag, that's this long piece that connects to the back panel. I have my lining piece. I have my exterior piece. For both, I have pieces of fusible woven interfacing, so you fuse that to the wrong side of both. Then for the exterior piece, we're going to add some foam interfacing, but we're going to base that on, and we're going to do a little bit of trimming of the seam allowance. We'll cover that in the next part. Then you're going to need 2 handles. The handles, the measurements are in the cutting chart, and that's what we're using our non-frame material, vinyl or cork. You're just going to need 2 pieces, and of course they don't need fusible woven interfacing. The zipper tabs. So if you look at your pocket inside the bag, there's a tab at the end, each end of your zipper. So that's your zipper tabs, and you're going to need 4 pieces of zipper tab, and the measurements are in the cutting chart. Then for the mesh, you have what I call the zipper pocket upper piece and the zipper pocket lower piece. So you're going to cut them according to the measurements in the cutting chart. Then the last piece you're going to need is the zipper pocket binding. So this is the piece that you find at on either side of that zipper. So that is just cotton, no interfacing. I went ahead and fused all of the woven interfacing to the wrong side of the matching fabric pieces. Now before we can start sewing, we just have to fuse the fleece to the correct wrong side, to the correct pieces rather. So the 2 train case firm interfacing fusible fleece pieces, you're going to fuse one to the wrong side of the train case bottom lining piece that will be at the bottom of your zipper compartment, and you just center it on the wrong side and then fuse it from the right side of the fabric. If you find that your fusible fleece is bubbling, what you can try is to reduce the heat of your iron a little bit. And also if you have a clapper, I find they work really great. You just fuse a section and then press down with your clapper until it's set, and then you keep going. So you're going to fuse the fleece on the wrong side of the train case bottom lining piece that will be at the bottom of your zipper compartment. And then one of the lining pieces that will be the back of your train case zipper pocket. So you're going to do the same. You're going to fuse this to the wrong side, making sure it's centered. And then you have 2 zipper compartment fusible fleece pieces. I left these with the seam allowance. However, if you're concerned a little bit about bulky seams, depending on what your machine is capable of, you can go ahead and trim the seam allowance from these pieces and then fuse them centered to the wrong side of your zipper compartment exterior pieces. My machine is really great with bulk, so I don't have to worry. I'm just going to fuse them to the wrong side at full size. The last thing we need to do before we can start sewing is glue our firm interfacing to our foam pieces. Now usually you can glue these directly to the wrong side of your fabric. I prefer to glue them, if possible, to the foam because sometimes if you put a little bit too much glue, you can actually see it through the fabric. So in order to avoid that, I'm using Fabri-Tac fabric glue. So in order to avoid any problems with my glue showing, I usually choose to glue the firm interfacing directly to the foam. And my glue is not very happy, not really coming up very well. Okay, I managed to get some glue, and now I'm just going to glue it to one side of my foam, doesn't matter which side. And then maybe put something heavy over top until your glue has dried completely. You're going to do the same thing for your train case back panel firm interfacing. Going to add some glue to your firm interfacing, and then you're going to glue it to one side of your foam. And again, I'm going to put something heavy on this So just make sure it's nicely centered. We don't want that firm interfacing in any of the seam allowance. Okay, so I'm going to put something heavy on both of these and give them a chance to dry. And then we're going to base these to the wrong side of our exterior pieces. For the, I don't need this piece, this is a lining piece. For your train case gusset, what we're going to start by doing is trimming the seam allowance from both of the shorter ends. And I'll just use a pair of scissors for that. So I'm trimming away 3/8 of an inch from these two shorter ends. Then I'm going to place it centered on the wrong side of my train case gusset exterior piece. So you want to make sure that you have that space at each of the shorter ends, and then you're going to clip the foam to the train case gusset piece. Once you have it clipped in place, you're going to, if you have a machine with a zigzag stitch, I usually like to, I'm going to zigzag stitch along both of these longer edges with about 1/4 inch seam allowance, and only along the longer sides, obviously not the shorter sides because the foam doesn't reach the edges here. I'm going to let these dry a little bit, and then we're also going to attach them to the wrong side of these two pieces. You're going to attach them with the firm interfacing side facing the wrong side of your exterior fabric pieces. And then again, you clip those to the wrong side. And you attach them with the zigzag stitch with 1/4 inch seam allowance. You want to make sure your zigzag stitch isn't too wide where it shows after your bag is sewn. You don't want it to show. You don't want it to be larger than our seam allowance of 3/8 of an inch. And then I'm doing the same thing with the bottom, the train case bottom exterior piece. Flipping this to the wrong side and then attaching it with a zigzag stitch. Please join me for part 2 where we will assemble our train case.